Thank you for the introduction, and thank you again for this great event we have here. Thank you for reaching out, Pablo. I think this was super. And I want to talk about a little bit of controlled environment agriculture. We have heard in the talk before that this is how was it called, artificial agriculture. So let's see how we go there. And I want to start. Let me see if it works here. Yes, a short outline. I will have a quick look back in history. How did we get there where we are? Then take over to opportunities and challenges. And then at the end, I would like to look into ongoing research projects, not only at TUM, but also at other places in Europe working on these things. At this point, we have, there's a German Agricultural Association we have, and they just launched a new platform that is called Controlled Environment Agriculture. So this topic is getting more and more important, and people are discussing over it. So, of course, I start where also Peter started when he did this agroforestry talk. We start at the Neolithic revolution in the fertile question. So that's where we all start with agriculture, when humans started to come from a lifestyle of hunting and gathering to one of agriculture and settlement. And they started to observe and experiment with plants, because agriculture is not only I grow wild plants, but I cultivate plants. So what you do is you really try to find the best plants for your surroundings. So they started with Emmer and Einkorn, and they manipulated the plants through breeding or choosing the right cultivars and try to adapt the plants to growing conditions. What are these conditions? So we have several influence factors in outdoor crops. We have temperature, light, water, humidity, nutrients, all kinds of pests. We have the neighboring plants. What do we plant next to each other? We have substrates and soils with the micro environment in there. We have plant movement by wind. We have different cultivation methods. They all influence our crops and our yields we get from these. So after choosing the right plants to manipulate my best growth, I then can start to manipulate my growing conditions to get the best growing environment for my plants. So I also can come from this way. And this all already started very early. In the Egypts already had little square beds where they protected their growing vegetables. They did irrigation to get the condition of water sufficiency there. And in the 30s, we really started to use chemicals to get rid of pests. So here we start to manipulate the growing conditions for each certain plant. So each plant needs different conditions. So we try to work on this. And of course, with wind and sun and temperature, they also started to, with the first greenhouses. So to get the environment more control, get it out, and still working with sunlight. But the first greenhouse, we try to get a constant climate in there. We try to get the temperature more stable. We want to want to extend the time we can grow things, start earlier in the year and longer in the year, to be more independent from temperatures. So today we have very modern greenhouses still working with sunlight. We monitor our plants. We see how healthy are the plants. When do they need watering? Still working with sunlight, and we achieve very, very large yields. And this is a picture from Almeria in Spain. It's like the vegetable and fruit production system in Europe. I think all of Europe is importing from there. And what you see here is a lot of plastic and glass over plants, and a lot of space just to grow these things. So that's, we are more independent. We can control the environment, but we need a lot of space. So let's get to the opportunities and challenges. We have a growing population, and at the same time we have climate change. A lot of areas we have water shortage. We use a lot of pesticides and over fertilization. So we getting really nutrients into our groundwater, for example. We have a depletion of natural resources. We have ongoing urbanization. So the cities, we have mega cities are growing, and we have a loss of arable land due to desertification and land sealing. So we have to try to grow our food in more in more quantity, but still keeping quality. And we need new visions on food production systems. And this is like the field when controlled environment agriculture is kicking in. It's a very technology-based intensive production concept. So I think it's very different from everything else we heard this week before. And it tries to protect the crops from outdoor elements and tries to get the optimal growing conditions independent from any climate outside. At the moment, we have several different types of vertical farms. Let's call them vertical farms, from home appliances to large-scale production facilities on the market already. So maybe someone has seen this already. You can buy this and put it in your own garden, in your own flat and apartment, and grow your peppers in this case. Or in areas here in Germany and also in the Netherlands, you have a lot of these indoor supermarket farms where you can get your salad and leafy greens right out of the growing area. We have container farms, they're getting more and more popular, and these are something I will come back on to later, because this is interesting also for the peri-urban and the farmers' land outside, because this could be used there. And of course, we have these huge plant factories. I visited InFarm in Berlin, and it's very impressive. They have 11 meters high growing system. The shelves are moving automatically, and it's watered, and it's just like no one's in there. You just put something in and take something out. In between, everything happens. So it's fascinating to see that, and everything is, but it is artificial. So I really agree there. So vertical farming is getting more and more a big market, and you can see it in the investments taking. There are huge investments been taken recently. So these are all different companies, and $500 million US by Amazon are put in there, or in Dubai, and even IKEA is putting money in these huge startups. I think InFarm is still called a startup. It's a unicorn now, but it's still called startup. So it's a very new market, but it's very, very fast growing. And controlled environment, at that point, I want to send this. It's not only vertical farming of plants. So like what we see on the market is basically plants, a few mushrooms, but it's also insects and algae and fish production. Annette Piero before already mentioned that we are trying to close cycles and maybe combine different cultivation forms. And it's not only food. With the algae industry, you also produce raw material for building, but also for making other food systems. So it's not only the plants itself. Opportunities. Let's see what we have there. So we have the closed system. So we decouple the crop production from location, from season, from climate. So we can put this anywhere. We increase the number of harvests per year. For example, if you, what we do here, I come to this later, we grow wheat indoor. We can have 7 harvests per year. We reduce land requirements because we stack on top of each other. We can ensure consistently the same product quality because the environment is all the same all the time. We don't have any sudden hail or rain or too much water to less water, because it's always the same surrounding. We reduce water usage. There are studies that say like 99% of the water is recycled, so the only water that goes out is with the plant. We improve nutrient efficiency because you can monitor the plant and you can just give what it needs. And of course, what you heard before, you avoid pesticides and herbicides. And because you can put it anywhere, we can put it also right next, close to the consumer, so we can really reduce the transportation distances. What are places where it can be used? Because a big negative point is, of course, you probably guessed this already, is the energy costs, because you have to keep climate and you have to have lighting. And this is a very big downside of this. still, if you think about new visions, how we can feed the world in the future, you have to do research on this, and also research on the technology, and try to get the question of energy and implementation costs in view. So, for example, if you go to North Africa, or also in Dubai, where they really focusing on this topic, you have a different situation because they don't have the good soils we have here. Here we have good soils and we have enough water and everything. So for us, it's not so interesting because we can produce very large amounts of food with putting less money in there. But if you go to Dubai or into North Africa, we have a lot of sun energy, which really gets the energy question, address the energy question, and we can recycle, we can close our water cycle. So this is an area in the world where this is probably very important in the future. The next part is in big city, mega cities. There is a big project at UM with Singapore. Singapore is a large city, but and they have to import almost all of their food because they don't have any arable land around. It's just a city. They have a big goal. So by 2030, they want to be able to produce 30% of their food on their own. But as they don't have arable land to grow, they have to go and stack things. They're going to have to go vertical. So this is an example where people are forced to go into vertical because they don't have the land. And of course, a very futuristic thing is space travel, which is this is actually where it started. NASA has been doing experiments with indoor wheat already in the 80s, because of course, if you want to travel to Mars, you have to have some food, not only salad, but you have to have real food like protein, like soybean, or like I don't know, wheat and stuff. So that's something futuristic, but it is also fits in here. So the potential would be, if you have like, you could, in this case, this was from a study from 2020 together with the NASA, a theoretical and experimental publication where they calculated if I stack wheat indoor 1 hectare and 100 different layers, how much can I get a yield? And I think they got 6,000 times yield per hectare per year. Because they have like the 6 different harvests per year. So this is a very huge number. And this is still half theoretical. So there's a lot of research going into this field. But coming back, what could it be for the farmer? So for the farmer here in Bavaria, we've been talking to them for, we started this topic here at Hans Eisenmann-Forum 2 years ago. And we've been, at the beginning, the farmers like, oh, what is this? It's like, this is not agriculture. We don't do this, not interesting for us. But within this year, and especially with all the weather topics we had in Germany, farmers getting more and more interested. Because what they have is a lot of times they have empty barns and they have solar systems on top. So they have photovoltaic on top. So they produce the energy and they usually fit it into the grid. But they also could use it for an indoor system where they have inside of their barn, and they can produce stuff that they cannot produce outside. For example, they can sell blueberries in winter. So that would be something, a point of agricultural diversification for a farmer who's growing outside the staple crops like wheat or barley, but indoor he can grow special crops. He can also go in like, well, vanilla or lavender, crops that are high priced and have like a second place for market, especially interested for people, for farmers that have a little farmer shop on their farm, and they can sell the produce they have in the vertical farm right in their shop. So that's something that's not so spacey like space travel, or it's not the desert, it's not the big city, but it's something that the farmer here in Germany can also do and use. What are the challenges? As I already mentioned, the biggest one, of course, is energy. So 2021, the Global Census Report found that vertical farms have a significant higher average use of energy compared to traditional greenhouses even. So that's something that requires a lot of research. So you have to research on new LED technology, climate technology. You have to work on more efficient use of renewable energy sources. You have to think about how can I integrate systems like this into urban energy systems. So maybe using the waste heat from buildings like data centers or living areas. So you have to find a smart energy concept to really make this viable. The other thing is the high cost of implementation, which makes it probably difficult for everyone to really implement this in the field. So for this, for example, is a company that sells containers, which like normal shipping container size, and the shipping container size with 5 layers would cost around 140,000 euros. So they basically all calculate around 1,900 or 1,300. It's like the area euros per square meter production space. Maybe, I don't know if Lisa is talking about this later. It's also possible that you just buy your own old shipping container and refit it yourself, depending how technology is, how labor intensive this should be. So fully automation, of course, is something that the big companies do because they want to keep people out of the production system. If labor is not the case or the issue for you, you can really do it simpler. So there's all kinds of different ways to do the technology level. But you have to keep in mind that you, beside the implementation, you also have the energy issue, and the energy prices are really going high at the moment. So it's really a calculation issue. Is it at the moment really giving you the benefit? Another thing is interesting because it's the pollination factor, because at the moment, and the big companies, they usually only produce leafy greens. So they put something in and they harvest the whole plant. But there's a project from the German aerospace thing it's called Eden, and they had in the Antarctica, they had a big container, and they were trying to do tomatoes on pepper. And of course, then they came to the, hey, how do we pollinate these? So that's a problem, because do we take bees into the container? That's a different problem, because we bring another organism in there. So, but even in this area, there are companies trying to find solutions. So there is a company that's called Polybee that's producing little drones as flies and pollinates the strawberries. So this is already on the market. So people are really working on this. And here's an Israeli company that's has something to pollinate. It's already working outside, and that takes almond flowers and blows pollen on there. So it's there are already solutions for this question all on the market, which I didn't know before I did my research. So it was very interesting to see what they do. And I also see here at the university, the interest is very, very large, not only from people who work in biology or agriculture. We have also a campus that is from machinery or engineering or data science. And we have so many students who are interested in this topic because it's something where they can use their skills and do something with live material. So this is a very new field, and it brings together different disciplines, which is very exciting, I think. So what are the challenges? We need, as I said, more research is needed, of course, in the technology field. So we are very high depending here on technology working correctly. So if, for example, we have a power outage for what reason ever, and it's not addressed immediately, we have a loss in yield, so which is a problem. So we need maintenance engineering, we need backup systems. Also, the cost of indoor farming operations is still very high. So if we have a small hydroponic farm, it usually is like 57% of your income is on labor. So we need here more solutions for automation. even for the small scale farms. The big scale farms, they're usually very far in this, but the small scale farms or container farms, they are not very far with the automation question. What we definitely need are more life cycle studies that compare outdoor and indoor production for different crops, because not all crops are equally usable for this. And we are not should only account only the energy use and emissions, but we should also look at the manufacturing operation of machinery, production of application of pesticides, fertilizers. So we have to look at the whole picture to really get a good comparison between outdoor and indoor. On the biological side is we need more understanding of the physiology of the plant and the nutritional and molecular processes of the vertical grown plants, and we need more breeding especially for indoor usage. So maybe shorter plants, less non-eatable biomass, they can use better light. So what we have indoor, we have the possibility to optimize from both directions. We can get better plants for growing conditions, but we can also optimize our growing conditions for each plant. So we're coming from both sides to get an optimal solution. So let's have a quick look into ongoing research projects. As I mentioned before, here at TUM, we are working with indoor wheat. So the picture at the beginning, the purple one, was from our climate chamber. So we are growing wheat. And with the goal, we want to understand the plant. We want to see what is the limit, which factors are the limitations for growth and for yield. So if we have wheat is special because it can tolerate 24 hours of light. So so if we have all the optimum of light, so what are the limitations then? So we just try to understand the plant, what does it need? And each plant is different. So this is for the crop wheat. And then the next thing is when we have the highest yield, so is it costing us quality? For example, baking quality or the nutrients inside. So there's something else you have to see. And here the interesting factor is looking at the light. With light, you can really change things in the plant. You can manipulate the plant biomass by the light quantity. You can steer the morphology of the plant by the quality of the light, the spectrum you use, and you can also induce the flowering. So different properties of lights interact to control yield and also quality attributes. For example, you can, if special times in your growing process and you put blue light there, you induce certain vitamins to be produced. So you really can also play around with the quality of your product at the end. I mentioned this already. Let's skip over this. And
to briefly let you know that we have, I think, 13 more minutes in total to give a bit.
Okay, I will kick. So this is just the Space Bakery in Belgium. So they're doing wheat also for Mars expeditions. And I want to just like my last project because I want to point this out because it's really docking on to Annette Brio's talk. It's a very big project funded by the German ministry called Closed Urban Modular Energy and Resource Efficient Agricultural Systems, Cube Circles, and it's coordinated by Professor Ulrichs in Berlin. And here we have, they're trying to get all the systems together. So we have the plant system, indoor farming or algae, then we have the fish system, the aquaponic system, and we have the insects. So if you grow your plants inside and you have non-eatable biomass, you give them to the in the insect container, and you can either produce insect proteins that you can use either for your fishes, or I think more and more also go into human food now. And the fish have wastewater that's very nutrient rich. You can put this again into your plant container. So this is really trying to close cycles. Let's skip this. I just want to add this project because I think that would be the big step to close the cycles and really use this modular systems and the closed environment to get control over my cycles and the nutrient cycles and water cycles. So just my conclusions real quick. controlled environment agriculture allows us to produce food with full control of production quality as possible. So we have less water, we need no pesticides and herbicides, less land, and we have less nutrient losses. We can allow shorter transport routes. We can guarantee quantity and quality, and we can do it anywhere. But we have high energy costs and we have implementation costs that are high. So at this point, vertical farming is not the one-stop solution for every farmer, business or city. It's rather one more tool in our toolbox we have to feed the world. And there is no universal best solution. It has to be fit into your city, into your culture, and the people employed, involved there. So I think it's just another tool, and it would be interesting for you to hear later how you can see chances to combine the different cultivation systems we have, outdoor, indoor, just to get the best out of it. And I want to end with this picture. It's from this Agrarsystem in der Zukunft is a big initiative of our ministry, and you can see here all different kinds of agricultural production outside with drones. You have aquaponic here, you have indoor, you have cows outside that are monitored. So it's you have more area for biodiversity if you stack things on top of each other. So this was like a future vision I just want to end with. And I'm sorry I took too much time, but I hope there's enough time left for you, Lisa, to introduce Plant a Seed, because they also have a project that is working with vertical farming. Thank you.